Lead together, embrace change, enhance everyone's journey. The 3 core principles of SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate across North America, reinforce why we're proud to bring you CEO Lead In, the podcast featuring curated conversations with powerful women sharing their impactful wisdom. It's a self-knowledge, self-discovery, and self-preneurship audio storage vault created by and for women. SmartStop's presentation of CEO Lead In begins right now.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the CEO Leading In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of CEO Lead In. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today we're here with Nicole Gates, the General Counsel for Dr. Seuss. How are you today, Nicole?
Hi, Rebecca. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're excited to hear all about the exciting things that you're doing. Could you tell us a little bit about what a day looks like for you?
Sure. My days are a lot different than what I thought maybe 5 years ago, or even as, an associate at a law firm before I was thinking about in-house life, because now I'm on calls all day, but I really like that part. I like counseling. I like kind of the last minute things that come up. And I do a lot more leadership and management stuff than I did even a few years ago. So I'm bouncing from topic to topic. It might be even earlier today, speaking with our publisher, and then there might be entertainment projects later on. And interviewing candidates for potential positions. So I'm doing a lot of meetings in person or on the phone, and getting to spend a lot of time with team members in San Diego and abroad. So definitely bouncing around to all sorts of different areas, but I really enjoy getting to do a wide variety of things.
Well, and things that honestly not most people would even think that you would be doing.
Yeah, very true. I think even a lot of people don't associate, I work for an author, but an author who's no longer alive. So you don't think about maybe the ongoing publishing projects or things that we work on. So it's really fun sometimes to share with different people kind of what I do in a day, but it's a nice broad variety of topics.
So let's go back before your career, when you were a child. Mm-hmm. Do you have a fun childhood story that maybe most people wouldn't know about you?
Sure. I was a camp kid, which is not really common out here on the West Coast. I grew up on the East Coast outside of DC, and I went to summer camps, and now as a parent, I think summer camps sound like a great idea for everyone. The kids have a great time. The parents maybe get to go on, have some time to themselves. I'm like, that sounds fabulous. We loved summer camp. So it was a sleepaway camp, and it had a lot of circus elements. So I would go to circus camp, and kids at school knew that me and a couple of our friends went to circus camp, and it was sort of nerdy, but we loved it. We did flying trapeze, and we did silks, and we did all sorts of different circus activities. I grew up doing dance and ballet and jazz, so it kind of fit in with that, but I really loved doing circus.
Trapeze, that sounds scary.
and going to camp, so that was a big part of growing up. I went for like 5 or 6 years to a circus camp.
Very exciting. Mm-hmm. So, quick question. Do you have one word that you think that describes you?
I would go with maybe dynamic. I've been in a lot of different environments from growing up. Now I can adapt pretty easily to a wide variety of environments, and I like different things as well. We recently did like insights discovery, one of those kind of personality tests, and I was fairly even. My bars were fairly even across the different categories, and that rings true to me. I can kind of lean on different strengths or skills and be very comfortable in different environments and places. So I, have worked in art museums and very quiet, focused situations. I now am all day in, again, meetings, talking to people, and kind of in a more leadership role. So there's lots of different things that I like to do, and in work and outside of work.
Nice. So how long have you been in your current career?
So I have been 2025 coming up. So next year will be 12 years as an attorney.
Okay.
So no longer, when I go to alumni events or things like that, I'm like, oh, I'm no longer like a really young alum anymore. Have a little bit more experience, even though some days it still feels like I'm looking to more senior people in the profession to, for guidance and things like that. But it's nice to get to a point where I do have a team that I work with, and I really love training and education and mentoring younger attorneys.
I think we always need to be learning new things, and there are a lot of people out there. I tell people a lot of times that are younger that maybe don't have too much experience in their field. You should always try to find people that are going to push you to be better, that are going to offer up things as far as leadership goes that you might find valuable, and take a little piece of it with you. Good things and bad things, because honestly, I think you learn as many lessons from negative experiences, because you go, oh, I don't want to do that. I definitely don't want to go there. And I've learned something from it, because even though maybe I wasn't even directly involved, I can learn something from that experience.
Absolutely. I think the most memorable lessons I have learned have been from mistakes. And it's one of those, even on, in contract provisions or something that I deal with a fair amount, it's always the things that went wrong that you remember. But it's also nice right now. I'm kind of still very much at a stage of my career where the leadership role is newer to me. Mm-hmm. And it's something I'm really focusing on, being intentional about and improving my leadership management skills, because they don't teach that in law school or even as a junior associate. So It requires being intentional about, to gain those skills and to make I'm always trying to make the workplace better for my team and those around me.
So success and failure, I think they kind of go hand in hand, kind of based on what we were just talking about. Do you have any examples where you think, okay, I really learned something, whether it was a success or a failure, that you would want to share with us?
Yeah, I think right now what has been kind of top of mind is in bringing new people onto the team and interviewing. And it's funny because you don't think of the interview process maybe as being, or I didn't before, as being how important it was, how it, even from the interviewer, how much weight it can have. But it's like dating, except that you often have very few dates before you basically get engaged to someone. Yeah. And so trying to ask the right questions, figure out the right cadence. You don't want to draw out the interview process too long. There's always this kind of balance that's similar to maybe a dating kind of relationship where you want them to stay interested, but you still have other candidates. There's really more of a fine art to that process, I think, than I had thought of before, and have had some wins and some not so successful hiring situations. And I really, again, always want to make sure that it's a good fit for both parties, right? And that's been something that I've, really been working on, trying to figure out how to make this the best fit for both parties so that it's successful in the long run. And it's not just as easy as, oh, I've read your resume, let's just talk for 45 minutes and see how it goes. Right. But being really thoughtful about the questions I'm asking, about, meeting in person now is not as common in the interview process, but it's a really important part for me. I want to make sure that we have that connection in person and we can both pass the 2 a.m. test for each other, that if something were to happen and we were working at 2 a.m., would we still be happy to be working together? So right. Making sure that even now when it's so easy to do everything via Zoom or remotely, that we engage in person.
Well, and then also building a team isn't about having everyone exactly the same. It's being able to find the strengths and the weaknesses in different parts of how they're going to fit in the organization, because, I mean, you can't just have everyone specifically fitting a mold. I mean, I think that's the good thing about diversity and about just having a team that fills different voids, right? I mean, that's part of the thing that I think a lot of people don't think about, as far as everyone can't be the same. And that's a beautiful part mm-hmm. about a community, whether it be a work community or just, a living community. It just really, I think everyone has, their space and their place, and they all fit together in some way, shape, or form, right?
Exactly. And finding the balance where I may, be comfortable talking, we may have a comfortable working relationship, but you're still very different than me, can be more of a challenge sometimes, I think, than finding someone who, it's really easy for me to talk to them because they're, more similar to me. So yeah. It's really important part of balancing all the different factors. So it's been kind of a fun, interesting challenge building a team and being part of that process on a really regular basis in my role.
So let's pivot to men versus mm-hmm. women. Not versus women, mm-hmm. but do you have resistance, do you think, in the workplace, because you are in a male-dominated sort of career? Do you have issues with that? Have you seen things in the past that, are problematic for someone like you?
Yeah, I've worked in predominantly, especially earlier in my career, in environments that were very male dominated, and now work in an environment where I'm surrounded by a lot of female leaders, and it has been a very different experience. One thing that is, that was challenging in my earlier career in a male dominated is that there are different aspects of relationships that you're kind of balancing in the back of your head to make sure, we were speaking about this a little bit kind of earlier, and making sure that, say, a relationship with someone who you think may be a mentor is really the kind of relationship that you want to build. And you have to balance that in the back of your head, where perhaps some of your, when you have a mentorship relationship with a woman, you might not be thinking as much about what kind of relationship is this? Is there an intention on one party's behalf of crossing a line that maybe you don't want to cross or feel comfortable with? So that's, I think, more challenging in an environment where there's there's a gender imbalance and a male-dominated workplace, and even just the day-to-day things like meetings where everyone's talking about a sport that perhaps I love watching sports, but I've even been in conversations where they assume I'm not interested in going to the baseball game or talking about the football game that weekend because I'm a woman, and it leaves you out of the conversation and that relationship building. So there's definitely have been a lot of challenges in male-dominated environments, but it's also taught me a lot about standing up for myself and being, assertive, frankly, even in situations where I looked very different because of my gender or because of my race or because of my age. And I think I've built a lot of skills for my career because of those environments where I was perhaps very different than most of the people in the room. Still am.
So let's just talk a little bit more, and not to beat a dead horse, but let's talk a little bit more about the relationship part where you're saying that maybe it's a different relationship that they want. So you're talking about that they might be interested in you in a way that is different than what you're talking about professionally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and I think most women actually experience this at some point in life in their careers, and it is tough because you really need to stand up for yourself, and you've got to be very transparent to say, this is the boundary, you're crossing the boundary, or it seems like you're crossing the boundary, to make sure that it's understood. And I tell young people all the time, young women, you need to do it early, because you need to make sure that you are standing up for yourself, because no one else will, for the most part anyway. And then you find yourself in a very difficult situation, and it gets weird. It gets really weird.
And it can very quickly without you anticipating it as well. And I think
Exactly.
It's happened to me even with opposing counsel, where someone was interested in something romantically, and I was calling for the case that I was working on, and it didn't even occur to me that someone might ask me on a date on this, work call. So it can happen. I feel like things can turn very quickly, and it's also important, I think, for young women to be able to feel empowered to leave a situation, as if they want, like, to exit a situation, no matter who it is, as soon as they want, as well, because sometimes it can be hard to say something immediately, or again, you can feel shocked and not know what to do. But if you can exit a situation before things escalate, that is, always something to protect yourself.
Absolutely. So we're actually going to talk about mentors in just one moment, but let's just pick up on that in a minute after we hear from our amazing sponsor.
SmartStop knows the winning connection is when we elevate success together. SmartStop Self-Storage, a California company with nearly 200 properties and over 15 million square feet of rentable storage in the US and Canada, is committed to positively impacting the communities we serve on the national and local level. By aligning our core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey with local initiatives focused on education, health, and social welfare, we all elevate together. Through financial and strategic partnerships with nonprofits and prestigious organizations such as Cloudcast Media, Arrow McLaren IndyCar, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, Wounded Warrior Project, USC Athletics, the Brampton Steelheads, MMA fighters and boxers, and other unique athletes, we aim to foster a sense of unity and pride within the communities we serve, creating a shared identity and generating a positive atmosphere. To learn more about our core values, our locations, and career opportunities, please visit us at smartstopselfstorage.com. SmartStop, elevating success together.
So back to role models and mentors. What do you have anyone that you can significantly say has really made a difference in how you do things, and just leading the way for you and your path for what you're up to now?
Yeah, I would say there's maybe 3 people who actually are all men, who really spent a lot of time training me when I was training me, providing guidance, and had very different, all 3 that I can think of have very different styles. But I think it can be a challenge in the legal profession sometimes, especially in high pressure kind of law firm settings, to really receive the training that you need. It's very easy for people to get in that. As we all know, I'm too busy. It's hard to focus on, training someone junior to me. And I feel very lucky to have had some, partners who were able to work with me very closely to ensure that I had the skills necessary and to be cheerleaders on my behalf as well, right? We really, even if you're doing good work, we often need someone to say that, right?
Absolutely.
And to say that,
yes.
widely, and it helps you get opportunities, and including opportunities that may come later on in your life because they continue to be cheerleaders for you. So I'm extremely appreciative, and I really enjoy now maintaining those relationships. I love meeting up, getting lunch or what have you with people who I've worked with in my past, and consider many of them friends. And some of them have also just given me practical, advice on life and the law, and even how to, for example, pivot from law firm world to in-house world, which is something a lot of young associates are often interested in. And it can be, how do I get to that next step? How do I look for a work-life balance perhaps that works better for me? What does it look like on the outside? And so I've been really fortunate to have some people in my life who took the time.
Yeah, that's great. And I think sometimes too, as you grow as a leader, you look back and other people, you go, oh yeah, I remember that advice, even though it's not something that's always in your mind. As you grow as a leader, I think these things kind of come back to you and you go, oh, I can pull from that too, because I do remember that conversation that would help me now today and what's happening, right this moment.
Or even the examples that people, leading by example, right? Where something may not have been relevant as earlier in my career because I wasn't focused on the leadership aspect, where now I see what they did there. I wasn't focused on that part of the lesson at the time, but now it's really nice to incorporate kind of those different learnings from people who I worked with or really enjoyed the environment that they were able to create.
So let's talk about lessons learned that you would, advice that you'd give to young women that, are maybe going through things that you've learned where you found them to be very valuable in your moving forward. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, I think it's on the more practical side, kind of one of the things that I often tell folks who are coming out of law school or, any environment where especially they have maybe a lot of loans and a lot of options available to them. But for me, it was extremely helpful and important to get to a stage where I had more financial freedom, very, as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And for me, that meant focusing on paying off my loans and buying a house. And that, those steps have served me incredibly well, better than I thought. And, some of it's getting lucky about timing and interest rates and all of those things. But I was really intentional in doing that before I got to a point where I was, okay, now I have a really big mortgage and I can't pay off my loan. So I have those hanging over my head forever. But I really wanted to get to the point where I could, accept a job or a path in my career that was not solely based on, okay, I need X dollars to pay the bills, where I could really focus on doing something that fulfills me and is something that I enjoy. So it was really helpful for me to be intentional and focused on that early on, rather than just buying the nice purses and the nice car as early as I could. So I really tried. And fortunately, that's more of my default. I'm more probably of a saver than a spender by default, but it was very helpful for me.
But don't you think that was planning though? Because the timing part, I think, you were ready to execute. You waited for the right timing. I think that's patience too. I don't think it's really luck. I think it's really having the plan, being able to and ready to execute when necessary, and then actually being patient for the right time, and then just boom, getting it done. Right?
Sure. I like to think that, and that is honestly what I tried to do. And I think it's, again, these kind of practical skills sometimes that are not necessarily a focus certainly not in law school, but that can really make a difference 10 years down the line.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about balance. because that is like, you're a mom,
Yeah.
you've got a young child. How do you find that balance, and how do you, or do you? I mean, I felt like I always had times where I felt like, oh, I'm balancing everything. I'm just doing a great job. And then there were times where I looked and I went, oh gosh, I am failing so poorly. And, as you look back and, you're right in the middle of it with young children. How do you find balance? Because I think there's a lot of power in sharing successes, failures, and then also mindsets in all of that. So how do you, what do you have advice that wise as far as, balance?
I am still working on the balance part of this. I agree with this. Some days it feels like, okay, I'm doing this pretty well. And some days it's a struggle, right? And I am definitely in the thick of it. And one of the things I'm really trying to be clear on is setting boundaries, which is not an entirely new skill, but something that's not one of my strengths. And so I'm really working on setting boundaries, and that includes with myself. I mean, some of that is saying no. And for example, I really love being involved in the community. I've, was serving on a board until I had my first, and I'm really trying to say no to that for a little bit, until I have, maybe until until I have kids in school, or just until I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to balance. But just because I'm trying to be realistic about the amount of sleep I need and the
sleep
and what my schedule looks like, where it can be extremely busy, and what that does for my mental health as well, that I need some unscheduled time, and it's hard for me to go back to back and then to a lunch and then again meetings, and then I have board work after work, and also exercising and spending time with my family as well. So trying to be really realistic about what my capacity is. And that means actively saying no to some things, and in some areas where I would otherwise really like to contribute more, spend more time.
And, I would say that most people really do struggle with boundaries, but that sounds like some advice because, if you walked into a room of young leaders, women and men, and you were to give them some advice of lessons learned that you really say, these things are going to serve you well. These things work for me. You should be very intentional and cognizant of these things because they are so important in leadership. What would that advice be? I feel like a boundary would be somewhere in there.
I think boundaries would be for sure. It's, lots of the type A plus folks, it's hard for us. You want to say yes to everything and volunteer. And I certainly can fall into that category. So that's really important to me, and working on even the little no's can help me say no to the bigger questions. So that's certainly one of them. And honestly, being true to myself is another one, where spending my time and energy on things that I truly enjoy, that really fulfill me, makes it less of a drain, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
So even where I am, spending my time or contributing really needs to be meaningful to me, and that include from my work to my personal life, and the people I spend time with, just because is so limited. So right. I'm really trying to be honest about that, and that's one thing that parenthood I think does. It can force you to be, to look at your commitments and look at your day and say what can go, what needs to go, what are the things that fulfill me that need to stay here, because time on that calendar becomes more and more valuable.
So I want to encourage you in that, because definitely life is seasons. So as your children get older, they become more independent. There really is a time. So don't forget the things that you love. Make a list, to remind yourself. And that really brought me a lot of joy to be able to come back to that, because you're just taking a pause. Oftentimes, you have these pauses, And then you move forward because the timing is right. And, that goes back to the patience that we talked about earlier, too. So what's next on your journey? Because I think there are some fun things that you have moving forward. Anything on the horizon right now?
I feel like she's saying this because she can see the rest of me right now.
I can.
Not just hear me. Yeah. So we're adding to the family. So it'll be really nice to have a bigger family, and a sibling for my daughter. So we will have our hands very busy, which also probably means, again, some intentional pausing on other activities that we might do, including, some more international travel. I think there's a pause on a variety of things, but really getting to spend some time in lovely San Diego with the family is, we could not be luckier to live in a place where honestly going to the pool on a Sunday feels like a vacation. So there's really nowhere else I'd rather be than in San Diego with my family.
That's awesome. And you had mentioned earlier, too, that you have family coming back into town that's been gone for a while. Do you want to, or not into town, but back from abroad? Anything you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we have, we were also lucky to have some family here, and it'll be really nice to, get to spend time with kind of, so that and have your kids be able to spend time with and get to know family from all over. It's always really nice to have more people local, and again, love showing off this city. So it's really nice to have a wide variety of activities to do that are fun for everyone. And I'm a beach girl, so I'm always very happy to hang out by the beach and spend some time with the dogs and kids romping around town.
Well, I'm excited about your next chapter, and it is great to have a built-in play person for your child. I have two kids, also a boy and a girl, and they're in their 20s, and they've become best friends. So I think that's really a great thing. And again, pause on the things that you can't do today that you really want to, but get back to them, because you will have time for that later.
Well, I look forward to that, but I will enjoy it in the meantime.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Really enjoyed our conversation, and just getting to know you a little bit better and find out more about the Dr. Seuss law part of it and all of the wonderful things that you do. So thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's a pleasure being here.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learned how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with CEO host Rebecca Jones.
The incredible curated CEO conversation you just enjoyed was brought to you by SmartStop, a leader in self-storage real estate and a company that upholds its core principles of leading together, embracing change, and enhancing everyone's journey. To learn more about SmartStop, please visit smartstopselfstorage.com.
Cloudcast Media.